Thank you for attending this presentation. My name is Esteban Guerrero. I'm fellow researcher at the Department of Computing Science at University. I will present the paper towards motivation-driven intelligent interfaces. And the idea of this paper is precisely that, create intelligent user interfaces considering the motivation behind of activities. We present a reasoning process for analyzing and for decision making of motivations and activities. We already know that human activities are complex, and we can see human activities and we can detect information from one human activity using artificial intelligence approaches, and we can measure and predict those aspects, those what we can call different kind of expressions of those activities. Those expressions are pieces of the human activity. For instance, if I'm cycling, I can see the speed, I can see the power, I can see the different processes connected with this physical activity. However, we know that human activity is more complex than that. They are more complex and dynamic. And one of the approaches that, and one of the fields have been investigating how human activities are performed is social sciences. One of those frameworks in social sciences is called activity theory. In activity theory is defined an activity as a complex structure where an activity is divided in different actions, and atomic actions lead or oriented to perform one goal. Different actions are connected with goals, and approaches of artificial intelligence have been investigated and developed to make predictions and analysis of actions and goals. However, there's one of the part that is disregarded is the analysis and considering the motives behind of those activities. The idea of cycling for me is totally different. For the motives behind of my cycling is totally different than the motivation behind of cycling of one elite cyclist. So we start from a context of behavioral change, where we know that it's important to capture the timeline, the change of these activities during the time. We start from the current state of the art, that is analyzing these expressions, but also integrating the motives behind one activity. The idea of this has been investigated in human-computer interaction and in UX, but we take a starting point is the framework, artificial intelligence perspective, specifically formal argumentation theory, which is a non-monotonic reasoning process that provides us a good starting point for formalization and analysis of the dynamics of activities and motives. So the research questions are connected with the user interface, the creation of one user interface, how we created, design user interfaces from connecting the motives, but also with underlying formal processes of the agent behind of those user interfaces. So it's a full stack analysis of this framework, starting from the general formalization, the characterization of the problem, to the user interface. And as a background, we use the idea of a taxonomy that has been provided by the activity theorists, where there are two types of motives. One is called sense-forming motives, and another is motive stimuli. Sense-forming motives are stable and internal. For instance, to be healthy, or the family behind, or the social connections, the internal stable connections. However, the motive stimuli are more temporal. They are connected with emotions, and they are changing during the time. So we consider these two types of motives as a key perspectives in the user interface as in the formal mechanism of reasoning. So the formalization is oriented to not only to provide the characterization of these phenomena, but also for investigating conflicts, which are very important in behavioral change. When we have motivations, conflicting motivations of one activity, there are important analysis to be done in health and social sciences, and we are providing a framework to do that. But also it's a framework to make that the agent makes sense of what, not only what the person is doing, for instance, capturing what it's doing, detecting and predicting, but also providing the why a person is doing that, using the motives as a key factor. So our formalization defines what is called a MOA, a motivation-oriented activity. That is a structure, an argumentation-based structure. The argumentation-based structure has a support and conclusion. A conclusion is an activity, and support is a set of motives, S in this case. So it has to be, there must be a well-supported in order to infer one activity. And the support has to be minimal and not contradictory. We also provide the formalization, the one particular specification of what we call a conflict MOAs. We only provide in this short paper one definition of what is a potential conflict, but in the future where we want to work more in the conflict, in more type of conflicts between different type of motivations and so on. But with that formalization, we use an argumentation engine, which is a process that you put inputs as a MOAs and conflicts and provide as an output a set of non-conflicting MOAs. It's a well understood process, and that we integrate that particular process, we integrate it literally in the user interface. We create a mobile application as a user interface to that user can create by themselves, deciding what they are the preferred motives and activities, and we select sense forming and we separate it from the motive stimuli. So in the end, what the idea is that the users provide us to the system the motives and activities, different type of motives and activities, and we create a two type of user interface, one for foreground, providing the MOAs with stimuli MOAs, and as a foreground, as a background, the more stable MOAs, those sense-making MOAs. And that is the idea of one intelligent user interface using a formal reasoning process to show a different type of motivation, activity, interactions. As a contribution, we present a design between one characterization of different type of design assumptions as a kind of mapping between human-computer interaction processes and formal approaches. And we integrate in our framework of motives, providing not only the what, the explanations, but also the why, the explanations using motives. And we also integrate this as a direct framework for our user interface. Thank you very much.